Welcome to this segment of Understanding Your Blue Book. Today we're going to talk about Rule 1.4 of the Blue Book, which deals with the proper arrangement of authorities within a string cite. Before we move into that, though, I'd like to mention that you're always going to cite to a particular source that you have used for an assertion first, before you move into properly arranging the orders within a string cite. So if that means that you're citing to secondary material before you cite to any other material, that's fine as long as that's what's supporting your assertion. The reason behind that is you want to point your reader to the exact source that you got your assertion from, whether that's paraphrasing, quoting, anything of that nature. The reader needs to know where the information came from. They shouldn't have to look through an entire string cite and figure out, well, which of these sources contributed to the assertion that you've made in the text. From there, you're going to arrange your sources. It's almost intuitive in the way that they're arranged. If you think about it, the law says some sources are more authoritative than others. So if you follow that arrangement, you're generally going to be safe. You're always going to be safe if you go to Rule 1.4 and look at the way that it breaks them down. So let's get started with that. The first type of source that you would cite to would be constitutions. And from there, that's going to break down into the federal constitution, state constitutions, foreign constitutions, and finally any foundational documents such as the UN Charter. And then within a state, for instance Texas, where we have multiple constitutions, you would cite them in reverse chronological order. That makes sense because you want to point the reader to the most current information, the most relevant information first, before taking them through some of the historical information. The next thing you would cite to would be statutes. Those again are going to be arranged from federal statutes, state statutes, and then moving into foreign statutes. And it breaks down even further from there, that you would cite current, codified, or published statutes, and then current, unpublished, and not yet codified statutes, rules, and then finally repealed statutes. Again, you're pointing your reader to the most relevant information first. From there, you're going to cite to any treaties or other international arrangements, all in reverse chronological order. And then after that, you would cite to any cases. That's going to break down in basically the same way as everything else breaks down. It's going to be federal cases first, and under the federal section, you would do any Supreme Court cases, then appeals court cases, and then district cases. In states, you would cite to states alphabetically, and then it would be by the rank of the court within the state. So any Supreme Court state cases, any appellate court state cases, or any trial court level state cases. And then beyond that, you would cite to any foreign or international cases. The next type of source you cite to is legislative materials. First, you cite to bills and resolutions, then committee hearings, then reports, and then finally floor debates. And those will all be arranged in reverse chronological order. Now, I'd like to take a moment just to address the reverse chronological order. That is the default because, again, you always want to report your reader to the most relevant information within the law. However, if you're writing a piece, maybe examining an older statute, and the most relevant information for your particular piece actually is the older information, the older cases, the older statutes, then it's okay to arrange them in chronological order. That signals to the reader that you think this older stuff is more important. From legislative materials, you then would cite to administrative and executive materials. Again, that would be arranged by federal, state, and then foreign materials. From there, you're going to cite to resolutions of intergovernmental organizations, and then you move into any records, briefs, or other material having to do with the case, such as petitions, in that particular order. So records, then briefs, then any petitions. If it's the same case, you would put information from the plaintiff or petitioner first, and then anything from the defendant or respondent, and then finally any amicus curiae, briefs or anything of that nature, and those would be arranged in alphabetical order. You're always going to arrange those by the first word of the party's name. Finally, we move into secondary materials. Secondary materials are going to be cited to pretty often. That's going to be anything like books, journals, book reviews, law reviews. There's a particular arrangement for those. First, you're going to cite to any uniform codes, model rules, any restatements, again, because those are going to be a bit more authoritative to the point of law than a book or a journal. Then you would do books, journals, any book reviews, any student-written law reviews. All of those are going to be arranged. If you have multiple books, for instance, it would be alphabetical by the author's last name. From there, you go into annotations, any working papers, any unpublished but not forthcoming materials, any electronic sources, such as internet sources, are going to go at the very end. And then last, any cross-reference to yourself, your own material, such as if you're doing a C-Infra footnote 51, and that's going to be the least authoritative of all because you're just pointing back to other information that you've already given them. So, just to summarize, remember that whenever you're looking at a string cite, it needs to be arranged in a specific way. Rule 1.4 in your Blue Book tells you how to properly arrange that. Going back to our last segment dealing with introductory signals, those would break down within each arrangement of the order of authorities. But it's critical that you put these authorities in the right order, and you pay attention to whether they're reverse chronological order, whether they've been done alphabetically. You can't just look at a string cite and take it as correct without making sure and doing due diligence of your own that it fits the order of authorities provided by the Blue Book. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you back next time.